And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Pop Culture Thursday. We've got a couple of different stories for you. We're going to talk about Halloween costumes, specifically the Netflix.
We're going to talk about lap dances.
We're going to talk about a Kentucky school that did lap dances at their homecoming.
Lap dance day. Hey, you need to teach a well-rounded education in school. I mean, these are things you need to cover.
You said it, not me. A barista's battle for the last unclaimed country in the world.
The king of, what's it called?
Beer to well.
The king of beer to well.
Yes. Shiba Inu's taking off. Scientists have a new discovery. Ryan's face from The Office. New movie trailers coming up. We're bouncing all over the place today. But before we get to any of that, the most important question, you're ready today, I can tell.
Pumped.
I can tell. Before we get to any of that, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Well, I'm feeling better than the superintendent that got a lap dance because that is not.
Are you?
He is.
Are you though?
He is facing some heat, and we'll get into that. I'm not the king of an uncharted land.
I thought you would like that one. Are you feeling better than the principal that got the lap dance?
Am I feeling better? What did I say? Yes, I am feeling better than him.
Are you though?
Yes, I am, because he is not. Are we starting with that? Oh, Squid Game?
Let's start because I think this one is the most debatable, for lack of a better way of putting it. There are schools across the country now, especially it's gaining a lot of traction in New York State. Certainly in urban areas, it's gaining a ton of traction. They are asking parents, or they are either completely shutting down Squid Game costumes at Halloween events, school functions, dances, all of these things. If you have not seen the Netflix series Squid Game, the quick 10-second synopsis, think Hunger Games, but with guns, essentially. That is like the quickest way to explain the Korean TV show that was on Netflix. There's competitions. You have to
And it's a reality show. They go around shooting people, right?
So not based off of factual reality. However, as they're completing competitions, if you do not finish the competition or if you mess up while you're doing it, basically you are shot and you are out of the Squid Game.
Obviously, you're out of everything.
You're dead. I think this is one of those we talk a lot about, like teetering the fence, teetering the line. This is one of those I kind of have one leg on each side of.
You watched it, right?
I watched Squid Games.
You were riveted.
It is very hard to look away from.
Okay.
It is.
That's all I've heard.
The best word that I can. It's not one of my favorite shows I've ever watched. I don't think it's like this critically acclaimed thing. However, it is incredibly entertaining. It's hard to turn off.
I've not seen it. I've heard about it. Okay. The big detractor for me is subtitles.
Okay.
I don't want to work that hard.
No.
But banning the Halloween costumes because they are inappropriate.
Yes.
Why? Because in the show is about people getting shot all the time. But we can have Freddy Krueger costumes. We can have Michael Myers costumes. Right. We can't have.
My biggest issue is just the hypocrisy, right?
Yes.
That's the one for me. Like when I said I have a leg on each side of it, let's start with the leg where I just kind of vehemently disagree with is if you're going to start saying well, this costume represents X. I mean, you can start going down through the line and you can start making an argument for a lot of Halloween costumes representing violence, representing death, representing all of a sudden you're going to look at that list and it's going to get chopped down really quickly.
Aren't they? Sooner or later, aren't the people going to be smart enough? Well, let me backtrack. The people who are high enough that can make these rules, too many of them think they're just smarter than everybody else.
Okay.
And they're not.
Okay.
They have more authority than other people, but they are not smarter than other people. And you're also assuming they're not idiots. So sooner or later, these people would be smart enough to realize the way to not make a big deal about this is to not make a big deal about this. Mm-hmm. It's the equivalent of a parent telling their teenage daughter, you can't date that guy.
Sure.
Well, now he's the only guy in the world she ever wants to date. So they have made a mountain out of a molehill. It's a freaking Halloween costume. And still, as popular it is among whatever, the vast majority of the population has not seen this. This
that you might be wrong on.
no.
You might be wrong on that.
50% of the population have not seen it.
It's obviously it's the number one show Netflix has ever had. It
Okay.
also, according to last week on Amazon, it was the number one selling costume on Amazon. So,
And I get all that, but how many people? What percentage of America has Netflix?
All I'm saying, whatever the number is, it's bigger than you think it is. I promise.
And that's fine.
It's bigger than you think.
But it's a show.
Oh yeah, I get it. I'll play your devil's advocate because, like I said, one part of me, I'm completely on board with you. The other half of me, there are different costumes. You can be a player in the game. You can be one of the kind of like the wardens who are kind of looking over the game. There's all these different costumes made up. One of them does have kind of like almost like an AR-15 style rifle, like with the strap around that like you carry around. There is this idea, depending on the age, depending on the grade level, depending on the function, I do understand, and especially like in urban areas, especially in places where like crime is an issue, I can fully understand why they're kind of looking around and going like, if this is the number one selling costume, how good is this for our second graders? And I totally understand that viewpoint.
I do get that. And I know that you talk about urban areas and places where there's gun violence. You know, I grew up in little old Montoursville, and we had our toy machine guns.
Sure.
And we had our toy pump guns that looked like a rifle, and we had pistols. We had all of them.
Yeah.
And whether some of them squirted, some of them just did nothing. But, and I don't ever remember as an 8-year-old kid or as a 6-year-old kid running around, because we used to, you pulled the trigger and it sounded like a machine gun.
Right.
And I don't think that anyone ever thought that we were going to grow up and shoot people. And
well, I think the biggest difference here, I guess one of the questions for Squid Games is it scary or is it violent? And again, I think that's a sketchy line to be trying to draw in the sand. Again, we come back to that point of the hypocrisy of like, if you're wearing a Michael Myers costume and you're carrying a butcher's knife around, what's the difference between having the Squid Game costume and having kind of like the rifle around your neck? So I totally get that sentiment. It just comes back to the idea of, I don't like the idea of trying to draw the line in the sand when it's very, very clear. It's almost an impossible line to draw.
Correct.
How are you possibly going to decide? And again, like, I understand, would I want my second grader in a Squid Game costume? No. Would I care if somebody else had their second grader in a Squid Game costume? No. And I think that's kind of the challenge here is it feels like other people are offended or will be offended by the fact of what their child wears or what costume they bring in from a TV show.
We had one, or not, maybe this is a bad example, but when we were on the boardwalk once in Rehoboth, and those places where you get dressed up and they take your picture.
Sure.
As a family. Well, we did like the gangster world style saloon. Mm-hmm. And my son was 9 at the time. And I was dressed up as a gangster, and I had my gun, and my daughters were dressed up as, were they called, flapper girls?
Yeah, flappers.
Okay. And they were sitting on the bar, and my son, who was 9, was at the other end. Mm. And he had a pistol. And as we're dressing this up, we're like, give him an empty bottle of something. And I don't remember what it was, but it was Jack Daniels or whatever. But so in this picture, my 9-year-old has a gun and an empty bottle of something.
Sure.
Why? Because the empty bottle just made it funnier. Sure. Because that's where, so is that awful or is it funny? Because it was our Christmas card and I got all kinds of compliments on it. Except for my mom. My mom didn't appreciate it. But be that as it may.
Yeah.
So, like, there is that level of...
I guess even in your example, though, like, it's a personal photo. You send it out to personal friends and family.
Isn't it a personal Halloween costume?
Well, not if you're going to a school function or if you're going to a public event. And again, I'm on your side. I'm mostly playing devil's advocate here.
I get it. I don't know. I find it hard to believe that a Halloween costume for anyone is going to change their path in life. That's what to take this again, this is the powers coming down. It would be fascinating if we could go back in time and take path B, is what would the vaccination rate be if there had been no mandates? And as opposed to, the people above telling the other people, this is what you need to do, or just like educating and discussing and then saying, make your own decision.
So you're relating this back to the costume, meaning
the powers that be telling people you can't do this. Whether it's you have to get a vaccine or you can't wear this costume, that these people at the top, they undoubtedly know what's best. And it's one thing for people at the top to give advice. And I understand we need laws, we need speed limits, we need law. I get that.
Speed limits.
They're more of a guideline.
They are.
But it's just seems like that's where we're at, that these people are, that there are a few that are so smart, they're telling everybody else. And again, we get back to it. I'm vaccinated, but I'm not, I don't really love the mandates.
Yeah. I got the call. I'm eligible for my booster now.
Oh, really?
I am. It's a little sooner than what I thought.
Well, this is, what I learned about this. I got the Johnson & Johnson, and you don't get a choice. When I went, They just gave you whatever they had. And it's funny because I got mine at a Wise Markets, and like a week after my mom did, and she got one of the other ones. Mm-hmm. And when they told me, I was like, oh, I thought, and they were like, well, we just get what we get, and we don't really, Okay. I didn't realize the Johnson & Johnson was the bad one until Dave Chappelle told me.
Dave Chappelle let you know.
He let me know.
It's not the great one. Are you ready for Kentucky Principal?
Yeah, this is a good story.
So this is multiple sources. You can find this wherever you go online right now. A Kentucky principal investigated after getting lap dance at homecoming event is the title that you brought to me. But actually the story is, I don't want to say the story is deeper, but the story is certainly not what the headline leads you to believe or what the headline.
When I saw the headline, I was like, this is a story for us.
Yes. So
and then I read it and I was like, now this is a story for us for a totally other reason.
So a Kentucky school district is investigating after a teenage boy gave lap dances to his high school principal and other staff members during a homecoming event. Other provocative photos of spirit events at Hazard High School.
The Duke boys, Bo and Luke.
Posted on social media showed teen girls parading around the gym dressed as Hooters waitresses and boys being paddled. Hazard Independent Superintendent Sondra Combs told the paper Wednesday that the incidents are under investigation. The most eyebrow-raising pic shows a teen dancing seductively near Donald Happy Mobilini, who is both principal of Hazard High and
the mayor.
And the city's mayor. So the city's, I don't mean to laugh, the city's principal and the city's mayor is nicknamed Happy, and he is currently under investigation for lap dances in the high school.
Boss Hog will get to the bottom of this, and everything will be straightened out. When they read it, in the headline I read, it said students.
So this is what I'll... This is like the angle that I will take on this. You either have to be so oblivious to what's going on in the world to think that this is normal in 2021, or to think that, I don't want to say you're going to get, because I don't think they were trying to get away with anything.
It was in an assembly.
But to just think that this is going to just kind of it's going to happen and people will laugh and it'll be over with. Now, on the flip side of that, there is oblivion is beauty until it's not. So there is this idea, if they're living in a place in America where they honestly believed you could still do this and everything would be fine, okay, but that's just not in 2021. You just can't do it.
But who do you blame? This is what I'm picturing, because I have seen a couple pictures. It's in a high school assembly.
Yeah.
It is
high school gymnasium.
Yes, it is like a homecoming skit thing.
Yep.
As I told you before, I'm picturing that the cinematic masterpiece, Revenge of the Nerds, where the football players dressed up as cheerleaders and the sorority girls dressed up as football players.
Sure.
So these are guys who are dressed up as girls, and because they're in front of the school and they're teenagers and they're trying to be funny and they're trying to be, that they go up and give the principal a lap dance. I don't think the principal is in on it. I'm guessing the principal and whoever else was just invited up, and they're like, "Here, sit here in our guest of honor."
That's an interesting take because I hadn't thought about Happy, the principal, not being.
I think he was
involved.
just. They were told, "Here, sit here and watch our skit," and then the guy went over and.
Now here's one part of it that we should mention.
That it's Hazard County.
It's not Hazard County, Kentucky. It's not so much that they're dressed like girls. It's like scandalous. So for example, like it's not that they're in like your Dorothy Wizard of Oz dress or they're in like your standard. The one guy's like almost wearing a thong and like
I didn't see that one. I saw the one
and walking around the gym and like dancing on people.
I didn't see that. But.
So it's
maybe
deeper.
you got different pictures than I got.
I think I found the better article than you did. So it's not so much that like it's not so much boys dressing like girls dressing like boys, or it's really just like the scandalous side of it.
Have you seen the way kids dress nowadays?
I have seen the way kids dress.
This is a true story, and I don't mean to. I was at homecoming.
Yes, you do. You do.
At Susquehanna.
You do mean to.
And it was a Saturday night, and it had rained all day. Last Saturday night was not warm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you that I saw more shirts, more tops on girls that had less material than I've ever seen in my life. And it's not July. It was late October.
Okay.
Like nobody had a bra on because you couldn't wear a bra with these outfits.
Okay.
Except there's one girl who had, and I actually reached over, and because there were other graduates sitting around us, but they were young. But I reached over and tapped her in the middle of a conversation, interrupted. I said, "Excuse me, that girl over there, what she has on, is that a bra or a shirt?" Mm-hmm. Because it looked like, and there was material in the front but it hooked in the back like a bra.
Okay.
And the girl looked over. She goes, "That is actually a shirt. I could probably tell you the website she got it off of. It does look like a bra, but that is a shirt."
Yes.
So when you talk about like the guys dressing provocatively or whatever, go to a college town, to a college bar, whatever, especially when it's warm, but apparently not even when it's warm. And what is commonplace now is just way different than what we grew up with.
The key word there was college bar, and this was a high school gymnasium.
Well, I get it, but there's still, when you got 17, 18, 19, 20, I get the difference, but they're not that much different.
I would, I don't know.
Because when you just said
into something here,
when you just said they dress provocatively,
sure.
I'm saying society now at that age dresses provocatively.
At 21, like when they go out to the bar,
or at 19 when they have a fake ID. I mean,
no, I get your point, but the difference, like, is it's not underage in a high school gymnasium.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that what they did was appropriate for a high school gymnasium. I'm saying I don't think the principal should be, is he the superintendent or the principal?
Happy is the principal / mayor.
I knew that. I knew the mayor part. I couldn't remember what his other role was. He's also the town barber and the fire chief. I don't think this guy should be tarred and feathered because I think that he was a little bit of the innocent victim.
But when you're sitting, like so in some of these pictures, which I'm sure you saw, like he's not unwillingly participating. He is not trying to stop it, like at all.
What's he supposed to do? Punch the kid?
This is what I'm saying to you, because you and I went back and forth about this with the Urban Meyer thing. Like when the photo shows you sitting in a chair and you've got a huge grin and you're laughing,
Urban Meyer was happy.
And a high school boy in a thong is lap dancing on you in front of a high school gym. It's hard for me to believe that you're the innocent one. It is. It's hard for me to believe that.
You think he wanted, like, Urban Meyer wanted it way more than Happy did.
We're not. Can we call him
Urban Happy Meyer?
But don't turn this into a comparison of the two. The point that I'm making is that, like, when a photo occurs, right? Okay. Like, a photo is a moment. Like it's just a time frame. It's a snap. Okay. So all I'm saying is, like, in that moment, in the time snap, like in these photos, it's very clear this is not a problem to him. So what I'm saying is, even if you don't know what's going to happen, it's unplanned, you don't know, they do it without you, these high school boys come up with this thing and they're going to all, like, it's when they tell you to sit in the chair, you have the choice. Once you realize what's happening, you can very easily get up from the chair. Like once you realize what's happening, it's very easy to walk away and then like take care of it. Like there's none of that in these photos. Once he knows what's happening, he is on board. He's in. So I agree with you. He might not have been in on the original plan, but once it's happening, he's in.
But there's a level of being a good sport, and it's a joke. It's a sketch.
I agree. This is the part that I do agree with you. I agree with you that it was a joke and it was a sketch. And I agree with you that they probably didn't mean to actually hurt anybody. That part, I 100% agree with
and this
you.
this was concocted by 17-year-olds who are obviously at the height of their intellectual
brilliance. Yeah, sure. But the other aspect of this that I bring up, it's not always what you don't know or what you do know. It's your reaction once you figure it out.
And what should his reaction have been?
Certainly not to sit down in the chair and smile.
He was already in the chair.
No, he wasn't. There's pictures here of him standing behind the chair.
So when the dude, unless you see a film of whatever, you can't pick together. So when the dude comes out, whatever they're doing, if they're doing a cheer skit or whatever, he's supposed to get up and run?
Listen, there are pictures here. There's 3 different pictures of 3 different guys dancing on him in 3 different places. One is in a high school chair in the middle of the gym. One is standing behind the chairs while other people are sitting in the chairs, and there's a kid dancing on them behind the chairs. And then there's another one of him up against the wall with another kid dancing on him. So this is, again.
And you don't think he's embarrassed?
Embarrassed of what?
But because it's like they're trying to embarrass him and it's embarrassing. I see him being guilty as a principal. He is the principal, right?
Yes.
He's the mayor.
Yeah.
I see him as the principal being guilty of being a good sport. That's what I see him being guilty.
I think you will think of it this way. Throughout the day of a school, like how many times do you think as a principal he's had to send somebody home for dressing inappropriately? How many times as a principal?
And they said that he has.
Yes. And how many times as a principal do you think he's reprimanded students for doing things far less scandalous or far less demeaning than what these guys
But this is part of a skit.
That doesn't alleviate. It just doesn't. Maybe in 1990
it should give more leeway.
Not the leeway to walk around with your ass cheeks hanging out of a thong while you dance on your
I did not see any pictures of those. I think you're on a different. I think you're confusing 2 websites.
I don't think I'm confusing it. Trust me, there's only one Kentucky high school with a principal named Happy, who is also the city's mayor. I don't think I'm looking at the wrong story.
Whatever.
I do. I agree. I will say this.
I get that it's inappropriate. I get that they should be like, dudes, what do you do? But for any, like if this guy loses his job over this is going to be, this is such an overreaction.
I disagree. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't. Like I said,
I hope he can pardon himself as mayor.
As mayor, he can forgive himself. His name's Happy.
His nickname is Happy.
His name's Happy.
What's his first name again?
You read it. I forget what it was. I just saw Happy and started dying.
I'm picturing something.
It doesn't matter what his first name is.
Well,
the point of this is, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't. But like in today's society in 2021, no principal in North Central Pennsylvania would have their job after this. They wouldn't. Nobody would. And so as much as
I disagree. So everyone would unless there's pictures that hit Twitter.
Yeah, but it's 2021. Where do you think the pictures are going?
Well, I get that.
Okay. So then what are you saying?
What if nobody takes pictures?
What do you mean? What if nobody? Think about what you're saying.
Well, I get what, but like just the simple act doesn't get him fired.
It's not the act.
John Gruden sending the emails didn't get him fired. It was the release of the emails now everyone knows about.
This is the part that doesn't mean that what Gruden did was any better or worse just because it became public.
I get it.
Can I finally say what I want to say?
Sure. Go ahead.
The part of this that you're missing is it's not about the act. It's about like how like once you if you're telling me he went through the act, he left the gym, and as he's walking out of the gym, he has no idea that something might be amiss. Like oh my God, like should we not have done that? If you're telling me that was his mentality, then like he probably shouldn't be the high school principal right now. He does.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sure he's a great guy. I wish Happy the best. I really, really do.
You wish him a lifetime of happiness.
I do. I wish him a lifetime of happiness. But the idea that you think that like this is just like, is whatever. Like no high school principal would survive this in North Central PA. None of them.
I don't. So, okay. So let me ask you this. Who's the victim?
Who's the victim?
Who's hurt by this?
Well, that's part of the issue, right? Because I said I agree with you. Like it is. I don't think their intention was to hurt anybody.
Well, even whatever their intention was, we have accidental victims. Who is hurt by this?
Who's hurt by? I mean, honestly, it's anybody who was reprimanded or disciplined for an action that was underneath this that then didn't receive any. Any girl who was sent home because their spaghetti string top was too scandalous or their shorts were too high or anything. Any girl they've ever sent home from the school.
I get that.
And so now like you have a guy dancing in a thong on the principal.
But you're saying in connection. Listen, if you want to have the guy dancing in the thong that he gets in trouble because you're like moron, you can't wear that in an assembly. That's one thing.
Okay.
But
the problem is the person that's going to hand out that discipline now, there's pictures of him being danced on and dancing with the kid in the thong.
But he was being a willing participant.
He was a willing participant.
He was not an active member. He was the guy that the magician picked out of the crowd to come get sawed in half. If
we lawyer this for a second, the problem is, to me, this is a scandalous act, and to you, this was just a funny homecoming event.
It's a joke,
and that's where we differ.
It was a joke that probably crossed the line, but nobody got hurt. Nobody.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. I think we kind of vehemently disagree on that.
I
think we do.
I like it when you're vehemently wrong because that makes me
wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong on this one.
Okay,
I understand. A lot of people think that you are right. That they're just like letter of the law, but this is the part of a lot of society, in my opinion, A, can't take a joke anymore, and B, just because something was wrong doesn't mean heads should roll. And
it's not so much about making heads roll. It's the idea, like, how does he continue to do his job successfully after that?
Very easily.
How? If I'm a 16-year-old girl and I have to come into the office now and you're going to try to discipline me, get out of here.
What did you do?
Get out of here.
Who's in charge?
You think I'm listening? And you think
you have to listen? I'm the principal.
Okay, and do you think the parents are going to listen? Parents aren't going to listen to him.
They have to.
Why?
He's the principal.
Get out of here. You know how this stuff works. There's always people.
Well, first of all,
just
because the parents don't listen doesn't make it acceptable because parents are crazy. But I'm a parent.
You can defend Happy all you want. The reality of it
here's the reality. If Happy is a good principal and he's I don't know how many longs he's been.
I have pictures. He's not a great.
That does not make him.
He might be a decent principal. He's not a great at all. He's not a great principal. It's not.
Disagree.
It's we talk about like leadership and being a boss and all stuff. Like it's hard. It's hard.
It's really hard.
And the reason it's really hard is because even in moments like that, your judgment can't flake. Your judgment
it can.
It can't.
It can.
Not if you want to be a good one. Not if you want to be a good one.
Because it shows humanity and it shows even. You don't think great coaches make mistakes all the time?
I know great coaches make mistakes all the time. Everybody makes mistakes all the time. The point that I'm just trying to say to you is you're trying to act as if this happened and you're trying to say this is like a 2 out of 10, a 3 out of 10. And what I'm saying to you is like, no. Like as a principal now.
I don't know. I mean a 2 out of 10, a 3 out of 10.
Like the seriousness, like the severity. Because you're like, who was hurt? Who was hurt? I'm not saying anyone's bleeding. Like, I'm not saying somebody's like detrimented by this. But what I'm saying is, as a principal, every time you have to talk to somebody now, whether it's a student or a parent or a supervisor or a teacher, anybody, they're not going to take you seriously anymore. So from a leadership position, how do you possibly do your job effectively?
I disagree.
That's fine.
I disagree.
We're moving on. No, we're done. We're done.
On an out of 10, what would you grade it?
Of what?
On, like you said, I think it's on a seriousness level.
From a serious level of like, can he continue to do the job? I think it's like a 7.5. Like, I don't know how he walks into any meeting and the first thing they don't think of is that he let a 17-year-old kid with a thong dance on him in a school gym with everybody around. Like it's not so much that like it's the end of the world. I'm just simply saying like people listen to him because they think he's going to obtain a certain standard. We've talked about this before. It's just the perception of like, do you do what you're supposed to do? And the reality of it is like when you look at these pictures, I don't think he's an awful guy, but did he do what he should have done? He did not.
And that's I don't know. Okay. All right. We've beaten that horse to death.
A Barista's battle of the last unclaimed land on Earth.
This is a great story too, for a totally different reason. It's not nearly as scandalous.
So across the Earth, obviously, as we're here longer and longer, there's less and less space to take. So the idea of just waking up one day and deciding you want to be a king or deciding you want to be a president.
Just stick your flag in the ground.
Just stick your flag in the ground. It's very hard to find those places. There is, however, a chunk of land between Egypt and Sudan that is a geopolitical oddity carved out of the sand, according to Vice News. This little region is about the size of London, I believe you told me earlier today.
Greater London, yep.
Okay. Because of a squabble between Egypt and Sudan and North Africa, this land is kind of like a, for lack of a better term, dead zone geopolitically. Yes. Nobody actually claims it as a sovereign state. It kind of splits the two countries and kind of helps keep them not
it's a
at
buffer
each other's
zone.
throats.
Yes.
There have been people interested in the territory before. For whatever, in 2015, there was a barista. I forget where he lives now. Do you remember when you read it, where he lives?
The one dude, is the dude now from Great Britain? Because one of the guys in the article was a barber from Great Britain.
I believe he's a barista. I think I had it wrong. It's a barista from Great Britain.
Oh, okay.
So he serves coffee, barista, right? I got that right?
I think so.
He has stepped in, and in the last like 5 years or so, he has tried to say
he's offered to help.
He is the king of Bir Tawel.
I'll take it.
Part of the way he has done this is he has reached out to Egypt. He has reached out to Sudan. He has asked them how he can help each country. This chunk of land is rich in gold. If you're able to,
what a bonus!
Yes, if you're able to mine it in the sweltering heat and in the sand and in the
it's a desert.
Yes, in the horrific.
Picture Spaceballs when they're combing the desert.
Yes. So if you can infrastructure it and you can keep Egypt and Sudan happy, there is essentially a country up for grabs if you are willing to try to do it. This guy for the last 5 years has tried to make deals with Sudan. He came close, I believe, later in the article, in 2017, 2018, before Sudan's government was overthrown. He actually had a deal in place to help them mine the gold, and kind of they would get to keep half for the infrastructure. Sudan would get the other half for their help in trying to mine it out. And then the government was overthrown, and it kind of scrapped that whole process.
Doesn't that suck when you've put in all this time and effort, and then the government gets overthrown?
You're this close to being a king, and the other king gets tossed out.
What happened to the king? They killed him.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Well, so it did bring up, like, to me, this is going to sound so cheesy. It just sounds like a lot of work. Like it sounds like a lot of hassle for a lot of, let's put it this way. It's a lot of risk and a lot of work. And I don't really know how great the reward is.
This is what I'm thinking to me. That his wife is like, honey, I want to be a queen. You go, because he may have been thinking, do you know how much work this is going to be?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just all sand.
Yeah.
Well, there's gold under there. How are we going to get it? You got a shovel? Like, how are we going to, we're just two simple folk. How are we going to get the gold out?
Yeah.
But she's like, honey, I want to be a queen. So,
and he heads down. So keep your eyes on Bir Tawel. It's BIR space TAWIL. There was another piece that I read. I'm forgetting where I read it now. I try to source when I can. However, they were saying that this is, if you like look at the global map, this truly is like kind of the last habitable, ungoverned, because there are spaces, but like to try to do something is almost, you're too far away from water, or you're too far away from resource. Like it would just be very difficult to habitat those areas. This one, you're just close enough to the Nile River. You're just close enough to Sudan and Egypt that they could kind of supply you different resources. This is kind of like the last flag. This is kind of the last chance.
Well, I mean, we've got where King Kong was from. We've got where Tom Hanks washed up. Gilligan's place.
They're not big enough.
What do you mean?
if you're running a country, you need space.
Do you?
Yes.
Why?
What do you need to be a country?
How big was Tom Hanks's island?
Not big enough for a country.
You don't think?
I don't think. Only because
I mean, Gilligan's Island was small. We know that.
Yes, it was. Don't you think for your GDP and your economy, space just equals resources. It's not even necessarily like housing and stuff like that. Like you just need something to swap. Like you need goods to give so that you can receive. Because otherwise you're stuck with what you have.
And Tom Hanks did just fine. He learned how to eat raw fish.
He wasn't a country. He didn't have to take care of anybody. He only had to take care of himself.
Which made it better. It made it more efficient.
So you think every country should just be...
I'm not saying it has to be that way. I'm saying the guy made it work.
A country of one.
He made it work. And then he successfully sailed away with like a porta pot.
I don't know if I've ever disagreed with you more on one show than this one. We'll start flying through some of these now. Shiba Inu, Dogecoin's rival meme token, hit a record high and is close to overtaking it. We won't dive into cryptocurrency too long. However, give people the 60-second diagnosis of trying to dive into cryptocurrency.
The internet crashed yesterday.
It did. You had a struggle trying to get
Jeff, how do I do this? Download this. It won't open. Download this. It won't open. Here, let me try it. It won't open on mine either. Oh, let me Google it. Oh, it just crashed because it's so busy. Did Ellen crash the internet one night when she didn't they take a selfie on on
an award show?
On an award show and it crashed Twitter.
It had so many people.
Something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what happened with them.
Yeah.
So that's it.
So you tried to dive in, you tried to get your first coins.
Apparently it works today.
It should be up. It should be up and going today.
Yeah.
I haven't checked it recently, but
so I think we're in business.
We'll keep people posted on March.
This is one of the things, because I'm not nearly as technological as a lot of people, including that moron sitting right. Or how do I point to you? Where are you at?
You can't point to me.
Why can't I point to you?
Because you'd have to point into the camera.
If I point that way. Oh no, there. You're right over there. There we go.
What are you talking about? You'd have to point into the camera.
No, that's
I'm
you.
Across
can't
from
you see me?
Oh, you're talking about on the screen.
On the screen.
All right, you're right.
Yeah. So anyway, when someone like me does something and I do it and it comes up and says error, then I don't know what to do.
Sure.
And then you're like, oh, there's something wrong. And I was like, yeah, there's something wrong. It says error. You're like, no, there must be something more wrong because it shouldn't be there.
Right. It's not. I guess the hardest part is just knowing, can you fix it or can't you? Because the frustration for most people is like, they may have an error and they'll sit there and try to fix it and they never realize they can't fix it. It's beyond their control what they could actually fix. So you trying to buy Shiba Inu yesterday, like that was beyond your control. They had more people probably on their systems trying to buy it than ever before.
Probably.
Yep.
So anyway,
without a doubt.
So that was that. All right, what's next?
Real quick, scientists discovered dog-sized scorpion that ruled seafloors 400 million years ago. They're saying it was the size of a dog off of the Asian seas, like the ocean floor bed. And they're saying that based off of what they know in the oceans at that time period, that this was probably the #1 predator, not a shark, not any other, ocean animal. That giant scorpions were probably the #1 predator in the ocean at this time off of the Atlantic seabed, the size of like Labradors.
Okay, so this is my first thought.
Yes.
And of course, they're bottom feeders, right? Scorpions just walk. There's no swimming of a scorpion, right? They just walk along the bottom.
The assumption is they stayed on the floor bed and everything else. But we think we know what dinosaurs look like, and we're finding out very quickly.
Okay, that's valid.
Probably didn't.
So, and I get how ferocious, like the scorpions do damage anyway, and they're little bitty things.
Yeah.
So like a dog-sized scorpion, I could see why that would not be something you'd want to meet with. But if it was the #1 predator, what happened to it?
Oh, it probably died out.
How?
Well,
what kills out the #1 predator?
Well, the waters could have warmed up. The waters could have froze.
That's true. Okay, I'll give you that.
There's a lot of environmental aspects of it. I mean, those are the
immediate. I mean, I can see the microscope because in the ocean, maybe a certain kind of algae that killed it, or there's all those things. But water temperature is probably a good guess.
The other thing, this is the other part of it you have to remember. Like sharks, I forget where I think I saw this on Shark Week. Sharks are very dependent. Like you think there's all this fish in the sea, so sharks will be fine as long as there's fish in the sea. But what you realize is the smaller the prey gets, the harder it is for sharks to eat. So there is this idea of it's not even necessarily something would have happened to a scorpion. If their food chain, if the larger fish or the larger whatever they were eating, if they start to roll down and now the fish are quicker and smaller and now it's harder for them to eat. And
the whole supply chain.
Yes. So there's a lot of different things. Again, Reed, I'm not a biologist or an oceanographer.
I saw this. I think we talked about this,
Yeah.
There's some phenomenon, some global phenomenon, and there were more of some substance in the water. So then there were more like the microscopic animals ate this and they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so this expanded everything in the food chain. Yeah. And that's why sharks in certain years, there have been more shark attacks because the sharks kept coming in because they're like, oh my God, there's this huge food real close to the shore where it usually isn't that big.
Sure.
So yes, you're right. There could be all kinds of things like that. But back to the basics. A dog-sized scorpion would be a scary freaking thing.
I'm not scared of many animals. Like I'm really not. Scorpions though, kind of like, I don't mind snakes. Like they really don't bother me. So scorpions kind of freak me out.
Good
There's
band.
Something,
though.
good band. Something
Rock
about
like
scorpions
a hurricane, buddy.
Kind of trip me out a little bit. Let's do this one. This is a cute story. For all you Office fans out there, Ryan Novak, he was also in Inglourious Bastards. I'm trying to remember what else he was in. But he was a writer for The Office, and then he became the character Ryan as well. At some point, 8-10 years ago, somebody put a picture of him into the public domain. So essentially, which means like anybody could use it.
Right.
They wouldn't have to pay a fee or anything like that. He recently has recognized, he keeps getting messages of different companies now taking advantage of the fact that somebody put his face in the public domain years back. He is now on the cover for hoodies. He's on the cover for food. He's on the cover for razors in Uruguay, across Asia, all these different places across the world. And he is basically said like he's good with it. He's not going to try to reap the benefits of his public domain fame on products.
All publicity is good publicity.
I hadn't thought of that either. There is a great
Could you just imagine, especially he can't be broke.
No.
And if you're a well-adjusted person, you're like, hey, I'm on this razor blade ad in Uruguay.
Yeah.
Like if you can't laugh that off.
Oh, the best one I've seen is there's a hoodie, but the way they have him wearing it, it almost looks like a Snuggie. Like it's kind of like very, like it's kind of tighter and like, because whoever did the Photoshop, like they just kind of like
did the best they could.
Did the best they could. And so it's just him with like this half smile with this half hoodie over his head on the packaging. It's great. Really good stuff. I can only imagine. 2 trailers before we go. We always like to talk about movie trailers real quick. Let's do the Lightyear one first. Pixar and Disney released a new trailer for upcoming movie Lightyear, based on Buzz Lightyear. Before we go any deeper, quick plug for my niece. She is going to be Buzz Lightyear this year for Halloween. So
are you sure she's allowed? They haven't banned Buzz Lightyear.
They have not banned. He has a gun, doesn't he?
He does have a gun.
And he's got
that wrist blaster thingy.
That's right.
See, Buzz is dangerous.
He does. And the wings kind of project out. That's true. I hadn't thought of that.
You're encouraging kids. She's going to think she can fly.
Oh, trust me. She's the things she thinks. We're in trouble. So Buzz Lightyear, I don't want to talk. First of all, the trailer, if you like animated movies, the trailer looks really cool. Second of all, Pixar and Disney, they're just obviously the ball is rolling and it's a locomotive and just like good luck ever stopping it. But to me, this is a perfect example of like why it's always rolling, because they kind of look around and they said like, well, what haven't we done? And they said, well, what about these characters that aren't the main characters? And how do we make them the main characters? And so let's make a Buzz Lightyear movie. And they just have this way of they almost don't have to be creative anymore. Like it's just kind of a train that just kind of keeps moving.
No, I agree. And they just need a new one because the kids are just like, hey, because there's 5-year-olds now that, when the last one came out, they weren't 5 and they need something to see. And so, and I think too, that the parents of, like, hey, if I had a 8-year-old, I would see Buzz Lightyear.
Oh,
absolutely. I'll probably see it anyway at some point.
Right.
But no,
have you been on Disney Plus? Like, have you actually been on the streaming service?
You know what? We have it because my daughter has been on it because she's watched. Oh, I saw. Was it Hamilton on it?
Hamilton's on it.
So I have watched Disney Plus because I watched Hamilton, but that's probably it.
If you go, like, one of the things that they're doing is they're kind of taking these smaller characters and they're doing like shorts with them. So they do these like 5-minute, 10-minute videos and stuff. So if you go on Disney Plus, one of my favorite things that they've done is they do one of the last Toy Stories. They did Forky. So the little girl in the Toy Story movie, the craft at school that day was to like take a plastic fork and some of the, what are the bendies, like the string bendies. What the hell are they? They help
Pipe cleaners.
Pipe cleaners, and she basically makes this like face on a fork. And then when she takes it back to the room, it comes to life and it doesn't know what it is because is it a toy? Maybe it's not a toy. So it has this like...
It's a utensil.
Yes. So the whole point of this show is like Forky learns about love. Forky learns about money. Forky learns about friendship. And it is like, it's ingenious. And my point being is like, they just took a character and they applied an idea to it. And now it's like this show on Disney Plus that like my niece and like other people are obsessed with. And it's so simple. Like they're really smart.
It's a good, how old is she?
She's 3. She'll be 4.
It's a good thing she's not obsessed with Squid Games.
No, yeah, that might be bad. Roland Emmerich's new trailer, the other movie we're going to talk about today.
I have one I want to talk about. But
okay.
You can go next.
You didn't tell me before the show started.
Go ahead. I never thought about it till right now.
Okay, well, tell the people, what do I always ask you before we come on? Because now they're going to think like I just...
No. You always ask me, do you have anything you want to talk about? And then I always say, yeah, I have lots of things, and then you ignore it.
That's not true at all. There's a new movie. First of all, Roland Emmerich, he did Independence Day. He did 2012. He did Anonymous, the Shakespeare movie. He does a lot
Which is brilliant.
He does a lot of like conspiracy style kind of movies. His new one is called Moonfall, and it's based on a moon conspiracy. I did not know this. The basic moon conspiracy is
they didn't go.
That they didn't go. And most people kind of know that conspiracy. You've at least heard of it, if whether or not you've read about it or dove into anything else. This new conspiracy, and I did not realize that this was a thing. There is a moon conspiracy with like an actual group and a following and like people that the moon is hollow.
Okay.
So the idea behind it is that the reason, so when we were on the moon, there were tremors that were far longer and were much more severe than your basic tremor on Earth.
Okay.
The reason for this, the scientific reason that has been given, is because the water on our planet, it helps kind of subside or subdue the tremors around.
It's a shock absorber.
Yes. However, on the moon, because there is no water, the tremors, the same effects on Earth are the same on the moon. Thus, you just feel them more because there's no water. However, people have said that the reason for that is because it is hollow like a bell. So like if you hit something that is not hollow, it might ding for it, like tinks, right?
Like a watermelon.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, you knock on a watermelon.
Correct. But if you do it to a bell, it's this much larger reverberation across, and thus it started this whole thing that the moon is in fact hollow. And they're very much like the Earth is flat, Area 51, like all these Bigfoot. There is like the moon is
Bigfoot's
hollow.
real.
Okay.
Bigfoot's real. I saw it because the $6 million man fought him.
Okay. Good. You're crushing the dad jokes lately.
That's good. You
must be having like a big milestone coming up or something.
Whatever. We're done. Is the show over? No. So the movie trailer I want to talk about is King Richard. Have you seen the previews for that?
I have seen the previews.
Tell me that's not going to be good.
I think. Did you saw The Pursuit of Happiness? I'm assuming. Will Smith. We should say King Richard real quick.
King Richard is Will Smith plays Serena and Venus's dad, Richard Williams.
Yes.
Who and the Williams sisters, if you don't, I mean, they're the tennis stars, are from like South Central LA. They were from Compton, and he's like, we are hitting tennis balls our way out of here. But they are not. Tennis is like golf. It is a very highbrow country club sport.
Yes.
And these people did not come from the country club.
So I'm very excited for it. I have tried to temper my excitement for it. One of the ways that I've done that, one of my fears for this is I love Will Smith. It's been a struggle lately. It's not been great. Pursuit of Happiness worked because the emotion, he was at the peak of what he was doing. That was peak Will Smith. He knew exactly who he was. He had just became a father. Like he could relate to that character, all of these things. I don't know if you've watched him lately. This is a really emotional role. He's going to have to revert back to like those.
I saw a preview that said he's great.
Emotions. Listen,
I think
I'm on board for the ride. That is my fear. My fear is I don't know if Will Smith can tap back into it. If he does, it's an Oscar nominated like role. Like
of course he can tap back into
it. You think so?
He's a professional.
I think he's great. It has been a rough stretch.
I'm trying to think of what he's done.
Suicide Squad. He did the Netflix cop movie original. He did Gemini Man. He did After Earth. It's been a rough go lately. It has not been easy for.
When they've had, not to totally tangent this, him and Jada have had a fascinating personal life that's been taken into the media. And
he's much more a social media star than a movie star right now, without a doubt. His YouTube and his social media and the things he's doing, like from a motivational speaker standpoint, are much more impressive the last 4 or 5 years than what he's actually done on camera.
There is just a modernness to their relationship, just a different from the traditional married aspect. If you want to read up on it, they are a fascinating couple. Yep. Whether you agree, disagree, think it's outlandish, or think maybe they figured it out where nobody else has.
Yeah.
They're different.
Yeah.
And
her show for a while was like rolling. I don't know if it's popular as it is now. She had a show. It was like
there's a talk show.
It was like the Red Table or
it was Red something.
The Red Table or the Red Chair or something, and she was like rolling. Like people were like in on it there. It's kind of cooled off. I'm sure the following is still there, but it's kind of cooled off from like the mainstream news.
I just saw one of these on one of my clickbait things. The girl who was in E.T. when she was a little girl. And she flashed David Letterman on Drew Barrymore.
Okay.
Drew Barrymore has a talk show.
Okay.
And one of her guests was Tom Green.
Okay. She
was married to him for like 3 months back, whatever. They did a movie together. They were young.
Yeah.
They got married. They were a couple months into it, like, what the hell are we doing?
Sure.
And they were no longer married. And she had him on as a guest. They hadn't spoken in like 15 years.
Yeah.
Because they're like, high school exes. They were married and divorced, but they had no kids. They had no anything. He had his career. She had her career.
Right.
So I'm sure part of it was a gimmicky ratings gimmick.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's, to have like somebody you're married to that you hadn't even talked to in 15 years.
Yeah.
It was different.
Yeah,
but
no, it was really.
I mean, if you don't have kids and you don't have any, if you have no entanglements, then I'm sure it happens all the time. But it was interesting. She's like, let's call my ex-husband. We'll go on but because they didn't have there's no real animosity. They were young and they were dumb and they were married 3 months. Right. It's not like this is bitter.
Right.
So, it wasn't like the Sonny and Cher reunion on Letterman or anything like that.
Sure.
Do you know that story? They were both on. He got him to sing "I Got You, Babe" after
I've never felt younger than the last like 5 minutes. Keep going.
This was a famous David Letterman.
I know of Sonny and Cher.
They were divorced.
And
they had them booked together. And I don't know if any of this was, but they were either both there or they were separate guests or whatever. But they were divorced and haven't performed together. And he got them to sing "I Got You, Babe" together.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can Google it or YouTube
pretty cool.
It was it's something that it was a very Letterman-ish.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Carson could have done it, but that's what makes them who they were.
Letterman's pretty fascinating. We should talk about Letterman someday. Like really dive into him. I have a hot take on Letterman.
Do you?
I do. I don't. I think him being a talk show host actually. I think he was meant for bigger. Like I think he could have served. I don't want to say being a late night talk show host isn't like a purpose. Like it's not like important or like you can't do great things. But like some of the stuff he's done and like the interviewing and just the way he sees the world, I don't know if an hour every night was what he was destined for. I think he might have had like a bigger calling.
Don't you think there's a lot of people like, I think Jon Stewart is incredibly bright. I think Colbert is incredibly bright. And I'm not a late night watcher. You know, I think Johnny Carson was an entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some of these guys are just like smart off the charts.
Yeah, I agree. I have 2 stories I want to tell you real quick. The first one, the Lakers game last night. Did you see? I asked you if you had seen this.
Jeff has to talk.
They lost the game because I have to get these 2 things. I'll keep these as brief as possible. The Laker game last night, they were up by almost 30 and they lost the game.
That's tough to do.
It is. At the end of the game, they had 2 chances to win the game. They airballed both shots. But here's the kicker, and this is you want to talk about like body language and work relationships and like how important they are. On almost the final play, the Lakers have the ball.
So are they down 1?
They're down 2 or 3, but that's not the point.
Okay.
The point is this young guy has the ball, and Carmelo Anthony, who's 37 now, is standing in the corner.
52.
He's old. And he's standing in the corner, and I am a huge Carmelo Anthony fan. Like his footwork and what he did, I'm a huge Carmelo Anthony fan. And you can see as this guy's doing this, he's like waving for him to like come my way, like come give me the ball, like come. And it's very, kind of like he's kind of like, come on, like inching over. The guy crosses over, shoots it, airballs it. Ball bounces out.
So the young kid shoots, never gives it to Carmelo.
Never gives it to Carmelo. And after he shoots it, you can see Carmelo like literally doing like the signal like this to him. And he does it like 2 or 3 times. Like, give me the ball like this. So the Oklahoma City Thunder now have to inbound the ball because it was an air ball. So as the Oklahoma City Thunder enter the ball, it gets loose. It ends up in Carmelo Anthony's hands. And he is wide open from the top of the key. And he lets it fly. And he airballs it just as bad, if not worse, than the young kid who did 3 seconds before him. And it's just, like I said, like work relationships are important. Because now, if you're that young kid, like, you're never going to listen to him again. Why would you ever listen to him?
Hey, that's why I didn't give it to you, because you suck.
Yeah. No, all right. And now listen, I'm sure they're fine. Like, I have no doubt they're laughing about it in the locker room, stuff like that. But like body language and just like posture and just like relationships and stuff, like that stuff is so important in sports and work and whatever.
In life, yes.
And I was dying laughing watching it because I was like, that is something that Mark would appreciate.
That is great.
The other
someday, and this will be off the air because we'll bore people, I want to know why you love Carmelo Anthony.
Love Carmelo Anthony. It is also Joakim Noah Appreciation Day. For those of you who may not know who Joakim Noah is, he was a all-star center for the Chicago Bulls. He made several all-star teams, was all-NBA 2 years, I believe. Not first team. I think he was second team and third team, once each. He was also the Defensive Player of the Year 1 year. And in his best year, he finished 4th in the MVP voting. So his peak was up there. This is the unique story about Joakim Noah, as you already hinted at. His dad was a famous French tennis
His dad was Yannick Noah,
yes.
who was in the 80s, I don't know if he ever won a major, but he was always there.
Yes. And then he also married. His wife was a famous model, Swedish. He married one of the most famous models in the world.
She's so famous.
I know. And that is Joe, because her name is like one of those like Slavic, like okay. I can't think of it. But she married Yannick Noah, and they had Joakim Noah as their son. This is why the Joakim.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about Joakim's wife. Oh, no. Yannick.
Yannick's wife.
Okay.
Yeah, was a model. So that's his mom. This is the part of Joakim Noah that the story, I hope someday there is like a documentary, a corny Disney movie, like something, right? I just hope there's something. He was growing up through. He never really played basketball until he got into high school. When he was like 15, 16.
I assume he lived in Europe, or did he live in the States?
He lived near New York, I believe.
Oh, they lived in the States?
Yeah.
Okay.
He actually was hired to work one of the like top camps in the country. It was like a Nike, Adidas, like the ABCD camps. It was like that version of it. And he went there to work like as a ball boy, like basically as like a towel boy, like wipe down the balls, collect them, give Gatorade, fill the bottles up, like all of that stuff. And late at night, they actually saw him playing basketball, like pickup, during outside of the camp. And the guy said to him, he's like, listen, if you do your job, he's like, I will pay you to go to the camp instead. So essentially saying like, I'll submit you into this camp instead. He played so hard that after 2 years, he got a scholarship to Florida as a no-star recruit. But he played so hard that this camp director called Billy Donovan and was like, you got to take this kid. Like, that's how hard he plays. He goes to Florida. He meets Al Horford, David Lee, all those guys. Essentially doesn't play his freshman year, like can't get on the court. Ends up being a 2-time national champion at Florida. That was with the really good teams back-to-back. Gets drafted by Chicago. Same thing, becomes an almost MVP candidate. His story from like start to finish is maybe one of the most undertold, underrated sports stories of all. Because we hear like the Kurt Warner stories and the John Stark stories and stuff. But this is a guy who literally was cleaning. Like, he wasn't doing groceries like John Starks or Warner. He was literally filling up the water bottles for the top 100 players in the country when he was 16. And then became the 4th in the MVP voting by the time he was like 28, 29.
It's a good story.
It's really, really good. So if you get a chance, there's a bunch of stuff today because they're like retiring his jersey. There's articles on ESPN. There's articles on The Ringer. A lot of good stuff on Joe Kim
in Chicago?
Yes.
Okay, the Bulls are retiring it.
Yep. So
and
a lot of good stuff on it.
You know who plays for the Bulls?
Who? Alize Johnson. Yeah, very similar kind of stories. If Alize can figure out a way to be all NBA, but
except Alize's dad wasn't a French tennis star who married a Swedish model.
He was not.
At least as far as I know.
Yeah. Really, really interesting story. I'm going to Young Frankenstein tonight.
Yes, you are.
Very, very, very excited.
I heard it's great.
I'm very excited.
You love the movie. I did not, but
yes.
I heard the show is funny.
Yes, so very excited to go. Community Theater League. If you get a chance, I believe they're there this weekend. They might be sold out, though. I haven't looked.
Yeah, I would guess just historically, Thursday nights are the available nights.
Yeah.
Because like Friday, Saturday, the ones that go quickest. Sundays actually go pretty well too because of people's weekends. And Thursday would probably, but if somebody wanted to check and they were interested in going, you can go to it's the Community Theater League. I never know. I think it's CTL shows, but just Google Williamsport Community Theater League. You can buy the tickets right online. Their ticket purchasing, you can see where the seats are, what's available for what night. It's a very nice system.
Yeah.
And you could check that out. But I would think tonight would be your best bet.
All right. I'm excited. Pumped. Anything else before we go?
No, I'm curious to hear how it is, though, because it is I am not a theater person, but there's something about and the way the CTL is the small, intimate theater.
Yeah.
Being live is like I watched Sweeney Todd.
Yep.
Because I'd never seen it before I went to the show,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked the show way better than I liked the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I would ever sit and watch The Music Man on TV, but watching the show, now my daughter was in the show, but it was cool just to be there. And so I think I've not seen a bad one there, to be totally honest with you. Some I obviously like more than others, but they do a really good job. There's a lot more talent in this area than you would think, because you would think that sometimes they're starved for people to be good. And I have been mesmerized by how talented some of the people are on stage.
Yeah. I had a teacher, a professor actually, once at Lock Haven. She described theater to me this way, and it's always resonated with me. I'm curious if Heather's still listening. I'm curious what her opinion of this is.
I'm very, very not curious of Heather's opinion.
That shocks me. I was told that, like seeing something on the screen and then going to see it in the theater is like listening to music on the radio and then playing it on the record.
Seeing it live. Oh, I thought
playing it on a record. And there's just like a tinge and like there's just a vibe and a feel and a hum that you just don't get when you're watching, like when you're listening to it on the radio or the CD, or because you can listen to music, like you can listen to the live version on a CD.
Right.
Like, so that was their example. Seeing the show in a theater versus like watching the movie is like listening to the record instead of listening to it on the radio. You can just, there's a tone to what you're hearing from the old record player that you just can't get from the CD or the tape.
I like the humanity of it.
Yeah.
That you, because as they always seem to pull it off, but they could always screw it up. And you can kind of, there's that tension about it. It's almost like watching a sporting event in that way, that it could go bad at any moment. And there's that nervousness of it. And after being in a show, all the stuff that's going on backstage and under the bleachers and all that you can't see.
Sure.
And there's all that inner workings that makes it, because now I notice now that the costume changes and some of them happen very fast.
Sure. That
they have people helping them change and stuff like that. So it's, but the liveness of it, and there's that, almost like you're rooting. You're rooting for the people not to mess up, as opposed to just watching it on TV and knowing that nobody's gonna mess up because they just did another take whenever they filmed it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Huh.
There you go. CTLshows.com.
Nice. All right. Anything else?
I'll be curious to hear your take on it.
I'm gonna love it.
And maybe one of these days we'll get you back on stage.
I don't know.
Weren't you a high school thespian?
I don't know if I would refer to myself as a thespian. I believe I was in 3 plays. I had a very, very small role in Music Man. I did a show that was by far my favorite, called Curtains Going Up. And what was cool about that is it's about a group of kids in a drama class putting on a play in high school. So you're essentially, the show is about a show that you're trying to put on.
I hope in that show there were no lap dances.
There were no lap dances. I played Buck O'Hara. It's funny, like, what you remember and what resonates with you. I played a character called Buck O'Hara. He was the high school jock who was only in the play because his girlfriend was in the play, and he was nervous that she was getting stolen by the true thespian in the play. So like the big drama.
So it's like American Pie.
A little bit.
When what was his name? Ox?
Yes. And I remember I had this scene. It's funny. I had this scene where I don't know why to this day I'm not sure why I did it, but I pretended I had to be like a cowboy, like whatever, like in the play. And so I just started pretending to hold a cigar, and it's not in the script, but like they said, like, pretend to be a cowboy. So like I pretend to put my gun in my holster, and I had like lit a cigar and everything else. And at the end of it, my drama teacher was like, "What were you doing?" And I was like, "I thought it was a cigar." And she was like, "We are keeping that." And there's a part to theater that there's an impromptu-ness that in basketball I've always loved. Like, my favorite thing about basketball is its reaction and everything else. And I do remember like doing that play, and I was like, oh, I could get into this. Like, that was that impromptu-ness and like trying to figure out what the character is and how they would do different things. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I will always remember like her seeing me do that cigar and the light bulb in her head kind of being like, you're doing every time, like, do that thing. So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to getting back on the stage. I don't know how good I would be. As I've gotten older, I've lost some of the willingness.
As you get older, you lose a lot of things.
No, I've lost, because I've only done it like 3 times and I was so much younger. I feel like maybe I don't have the willingness to like let loose, like kind of like dive into it. I have almost become too kind of who I am.
Self-conscious?
To kind of like separate myself. But I also haven't tried it in so long, so I don't know. It would be interesting.
It would be interesting.
You enjoyed your experience, you said.
It was really fun. It was really.
For those who don't know, you did It's a Wonderful Life.
I was George.
And you were?
I was George Bailey.
And you knew you were going to be George when you walked out.
Because when you want to cast someone as the lead who's never been in a play before, because that's a good idea. I'll tell you what made it easy for me was because you think the same thing, like, can I get into it?
Right.
And having never been in this situation, but everyone around you is into it.
Right.
Just like you're like, well, when I go to basketball, can I make any shots? You walk in the gym, everyone's shooting.
Sure.
So you just pick up a ball and start shooting.
Okay.
And when everybody else is doing it, and you talk to someone, and then they walk on stage and they're in character and they're doing voices and they're all, so then you just do it.
Yeah.
So it is from that aspect, you got past the self-consciousness very easy.
Sure.
Because you're like, if you're doing it around your buddies, you would never get past it.
Sure.
But you're doing it around everybody else who's already, they're doing it too.
Yeah.
So there's why would I be self-conscious? Other than the people walking by going, this guy sucks. But,
Sure.
but they're polite enough. They don't say that to your face. They just say it behind the scenes. So, but it is, that's the thing, the inner workings behind it. The director, the assistant director, the stage managers, the costume people, the props people, all that stuff.
I felt fortunate. The 3 plays I did in high school, and I was never like a lead. Like my last 2 roles, I was certainly one of like the main, but I've never had to be like the lead. And I will say, like, one of the neat things from my experience, like the first thing I did in Music Man, I mean, I was on the stage for like the opening scene when they're on the train.
Right.
And then I did a couple of crowd stuff. But the majority of what I did was like the behind the scenes, moving stuff, getting stuff into place, making sure like as someone else was on stage, I would make sure that their next outfit was there and ready and prepped and so what was funny is like when I finally got to do one of the main characters, I just had a better appreciation for what everybody else was. So there is, like anything else you do, my very naive theater experience, that is one of the neat things I've always appreciated about it, was I kind of got to see the ebb and flow and how important, everybody's so important to what you're doing. It does not matter. And in sports, you don't always get to see that.
It's different.
In work, you don't always get to see that. But I vividly remember in theater, like the last person on that sheet, if they messed up, like we were all, it was noticeable. Like it. So
one of the things that I took from it, and these are things that I notice now. And I don't go to a lot of shows. I go to see a lot of the people that I were with. Like when we went to see, I was with you and we saw Sweeney Todd, because the dude who played Sweeney Todd was in the show with me, and we're friends now. So, but like during like the real rehearsals, when you're down to the nitty gritty and you're during tech week, which is what they call the last week before you're into it. And I had to get off stage and get changed and get back on. And I had a pit crew. Like I had people that are like, strip you down, dress you again, and get you back out there. And the first night when the director's yelling, "Where's Mark? We need Mark." They're like, we don't have enough time.
Yeah.
So then they go home at night and they're like, how can we figure out, because there's only so many lines in between and he has to age and come out in a different costume. Right. So what they did was my second costume was under my first costume. Right. And I was this, and then when we came off, it wasn't stripped down and get redressed. It was just stripped down and you're already dressed. Yeah. And that was their solution. And like I went home, I was like, there's no way we're going to do this. Right. And then you're like, well, we'll have to adjust the script. You can't adjust the script because there's copyrights and there's legal limits as to what you're allowed to do. Right. And the next day they're just like, nope, we figured it out. This is what we'll do. Yeah. So there's a lot of neat, and every theater has its own nuances and its size limitations and its space limitations and where the lighting is. So it is clever.
I'm curious, like your opinion on this, because I said this after I was done. I always enjoyed the process more than the showings. Were you the opposite, or did you find yourself the same way? I enjoyed the creativeness, the impromptu-ness. Like I enjoyed trying to figure it out way more than coming out and hitting my marks when it was time to do the show.
I did not, because it was so hard for me because I had so many lines to learn. I'd never done it. Mm-hmm. And like it was literally, I tell this like that we get to the first showing was Thursday in front of an audience. Mm-hmm. And like Sunday night I went through it and there was parts I didn't know. And I went home and studied, and Monday night I went back and I was nailing the parts that I didn't know the night before, and I was screwing up the parts that I did. But it wasn't until Tuesday of the week that after 2 months of practicing, like Tuesday's the first time I got through it the whole time. So I don't want to say the process it was a little tense because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be ready. Yeah. So then once we got to the show and I got through the first one, then it became really fun for me. Yeah. But
nice. All right. Well, I'm excited. Young Frankenstein, Community Theater League.
I'm sure nobody's listening anymore. We just bored everyone to death.
Your marketing skills just never cease to amaze me.
It's we have one listener left.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
Packers, Cardinals tonight in the greatest Thursday night football game that did not involve the Cowboys in NFL history. It's like 6-0 versus 5-1, and it's
a good one.
This is really Thursday night football usually sucks.
Yeah.
This one is awesome.
Murray's exciting. Very exciting.
And Rodgers is pretty decent still.
He's okay. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yes, we will.
Because it's Thursday.
In the rain.
You like how I had to think about that?